Taikusaus, welcome to a journey through time. Today I'm taking you to the heart of 19th century Prussia, where the icy winds carried not only the promise of winter, but also whispers of a transformation that would forever change two lost souls. A story of healing that goes beyond the body, touching the deepest wounds of the human soul. In just a few minutes, you'll meet Anna Weber, a young orphan healer who possesses the rare gift of transforming pain into hope. And Friedrich von Ravendorf, the feared Iron Duke, whose hardened heart is about to discover that even the most impenetrable fortresses can surrender to the power of compassion. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this story? I love knowing where our community is spread across the world. And go ahead and leave that cheeky like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the soul. Now, prepare your hearts. Year 1847. Location, Greifenstein and Ravendorf Castle, Kingdom of Prussia. The iron heart of Ravendorf. The wind howled through the fir trees like an ancestral lament, carrying with it the weight of October and the promise of a night that would change everything. Anna Weber adjusted her worn shawl over her shoulders, feeling the first icy drops of the approaching storm. At 19 years old, she possessed the calloused hands of one who knew hard work and the deep eyes of someone who had learned too soon about the world's cruelty. The Hoffmann house, which she had called home for 14 years, now stood before her like a hostile fortress. The yellowish light from the windows, which once represented shelter, now pulsed like accusing eyes in the growing darkness. 19 years! Herr Hoffmann's voice cut through the air like an axe against dry wood. 19 years feeding a useless mouth. His words fell heavy like hail upon Anna's heart, each syllable a stone thrown at her already wounded dignity. Anna gripped tightly the small bundle containing her only belongings: Bertha's medical manuscript, her deceased teacher, some dried herbs, and the simple wooden cross that had belonged to her true mother. The limp of her right leg, a consequence of bone tuberculosis poorly treated in childhood, turned each step into a small battle against her own frailty. The storm unleashed, as if the very sky wept for her. Anna walked along the muddy path, each thunder resonating like the beating of a broken heart. She didn't know where to go, had no one in the world, only the knowledge about medicinal plants that Bertha had taught her, and the unshakable faith that there was a greater purpose waiting for her in the darkness. Destiny, however, had already traced its plans, and at the next curve of the royal road, a life would depend on her skillful hands to continue. The black horse lay motionless in the mud, vapor from its breath mixing with the dawn mist. Beside it, a man of noble bearing remained unconscious, his pale face contrasting with dark hair soaked by rain. Anna approached slowly, her heart racing not from fear, but from the urgency she recognized in every fiber of her trained being. Her delicate but steady hands touched the stranger's forehead. High fever, shallow breathing, lips with a bluish tone, acute pneumonia, possibly complicated by hypothermia. Without hesitation, Anna opened her bundle and extracted small vials of herbs she carried like treasures. She worked throughout the dawn, preparing mustard poultices over improvised embers, forcing elderberry tisanes between the stranger's colorless lips, wrapping him in hot compresses made from her own woolen undergarments. Her fingers danced with surgical precision, applying each technique Bertha had taught her about the delicate balance between life and death. When the sun rose, tinting the sky golden, the man breathed more regularly. Anna, exhausted but victorious, watched the serene face that began to recover its natural color. She didn't know she had saved Friedrich von Ravendorf, the feared Iron Duke, whose reputation for severity echoed throughout Prussia. The thunder of hooves approached like terrestrial thunder. 6 soldiers of the ducal guard, impeccable uniforms contrasting with the disorder of the morning scene, surrounded Anna with cruel suspicion in their eyes. To them, a young orphan bent over their lord's unconscious body could only mean one thing: attempted murder. Cold shackles closed around her delicate wrists, and Anna was taken toward a destiny she still couldn't comprehend. Schloss Ravendorf rose against the morning sky, like a giant of stone and tradition. Its 8 towers pointed toward infinity, while the 4-meter-high walls whispered stories of centuries past. The still functional moat reflected the clouds like a somber mirror, creating both a physical and symbolic barrier between the outside world and the secrets guarded within those ancestral walls. Anna was led through the main courtyard, her steps echoing on stones worn by generations of inhabitants. The limp of her right leg seemed more pronounced before the place's imposingness, as if even her physical frailty bowed to the castle's majesty. The audience hall where she was brought breathed power. Gold-embroidered tapestries decorated the walls, while the Ravendorf coat of arms, an eagle with spread wings holding a sword, dominated the environment with silent authority. When Friedrich von Ravendorf entered, still pale but already recovered enough to walk, Anna felt the weight of blue eyes that seemed to read her soul. "You saved my life," his grave voice echoed through the hall like the murmur of a deep river. It wasn't a question but a statement loaded with surprise and something Anna couldn't completely identify. The interrogations that followed revealed not only Anna's exceptional medical competence, but also her unshakable dignity in the face of adversity. Friedrich, a man educated in Heidelberg and knowledgeable in anatomy, recognized in her techniques knowledge that went beyond the superficial. The proposal emerged like a ray of hope amid the storm. Care for his convalescence for 2 months in exchange for 50 silver thalers. For Anna it was more than money. It was the chance to prove her worth in a world that had always seen her as a burden. Frau Müller, the severe housekeeper who administered the castle's 40 servants, led Anna to the ladies' quarter. The assigned room, though simple, possessed a window that looked toward the gardens, and Anna knew that something in her life was about to bloom. The North Tower guarded secrets that echoed louder than words. Wilhelm von Ravendorf, merely 7 years old, moved through the corridors like a small silent ghost, carrying on his shoulders the weight of pain no child should know. 18 months had passed since he witnessed his parents' agony during the cholera epidemic, and since then his voice had refused to emerge from a throat strangled by trauma. Anna climbed the worn steps of the tower with a heavy heart. There was something in that place's forced quietude that resonated with her own internal wounds. The children's quarters, decorated with toys that seemed more like monuments to sadness than objects of joy, told the story of a brutally interrupted childhood. The boy sat by the window, observing the gardens with eyes that seemed too old for his delicate face. When Anna entered, he didn't turn, but she perceived the almost imperceptible tension in his small shoulders, the posture of someone always alert, awaiting the next loss. For days, Anna simply sat in the same room, occupying herself with her medicinal preparations, without forcing interaction. She hummed softly ancient melodies that Bertha had taught her, letting the music float through the air like a gentle invitation. Gradually, she began to notice small changes. Wilhelm would slightly tilt his head when she sang. His fingers would stop nervously drumming on the window. The straw doll that Anna created with her own hands was the first gift Wilhelm accepted. He didn't smile, but held it against his chest with a delicacy that broke Anna's heart. That night he ate in her presence, something he hadn't done in months. It was a small miracle, but Anna knew that the greatest progress always began with the smallest gestures of trust. Prussian winter arrived with icy arms that embraced the castle like an old familiar friend. Anna had transformed one of the smaller ground-floor rooms into an improvised infirmary, where the aroma of medicinal herbs mixed with the warmth of always-burning fireplaces. Servants, regional peasants, and even some minor nobles sought her care, spreading her reputation like petals carried by the wind. Friedrich frequently found himself watching Anna work, initially moved by the scientific curiosity of someone who had studied anatomy, but gradually attracted by something deeper and indefinable. Conversations that began about medical procedures extended into the late hours, evolving into confidences whispered by flickering candlelight. "Medicine," he said on a particularly silent night, "is the most human of sciences." His words carried weight that went beyond academic knowledge, revealing a man who had seen too much suffering to remain indifferent. When influenza struck the castle like an invisible plague, Anna and Friedrich worked side by side for 72 straight hours. She, with her potions and compresses, he with his physical strength to carry the sick and knowledge to organize quarantines. They didn't sleep, barely ate, moved only by the sacred urgency to preserve lives. It was during this battle against disease that Wilhelm spoke his first complete sentence in 18 months. Anna was preparing tea for a feverish maid when she felt small fingers touch her skirt. "Anna," the trembling little voice cut through the air like a distant bell, "are you going away like Mama and Papa?" The silence that followed was different. No longer a wall, but a bridge. Anna knelt before the boy, humid eyes reflecting all the tenderness her heart held. "No, my little prince," she whispered. "Anna stays." And in that moment, 3 wounded hearts began to heal together. Spring 1848 arrived, carrying more than flowers and promises. Herr Hoffmann returned like an out-of-season winter storm, accompanied by documents that trembled in his hands like dry leaves in the wind. The accusation was grave: theft of a gold cross with rubies, family relic valued at 200 silver thalers, a fortune capable of buying an entire property. In the ducal court, decorated with ancestral shields and heavy with the aroma of parchment and candle wax, Anna remained upright like a young oak before the storm. Her dignity had not curved before poverty, nor would it bend before false accusations. Friedrich conducted the investigation with the precision of an anatomist, studying each fiber of a mystery. For 5 days, detectives hired from Berlin reviewed documents, interrogated witnesses, and reconstructed Anna's story from birth. What they discovered changed not only the present, but revealed a past that had been deliberately buried. Anna Weber was not just any orphan. She was the daughter of Baron Klaus Weber of Westphalia, an officer who died heroically at Waterloo in 1815. The 300-hectare property and annual income of 800 thalers that belonged to her by right had been astutely usurped by the Hoffmanns through falsified documents and strategic bribes. The revelation fell upon the room like heavy snow on fragile branches. Anna, who had lived as a servant, discovered herself an heiress. The cross she supposedly had stolen had belonged to her own mother, hidden among her few belongings as the last vestige of a stolen identity. When Herr and Frau Hoffmann were condemned to 10 years of forced labor, Anna felt no triumph, but deep sadness for two people who had chosen greed over honor. Friedrich observed her throughout the entire process, seeing not revenge in her eyes, but compassion. And in that moment he knew he stood before a woman whose nobility came not from titles, but from character. The castle library at night was a sanctuary of knowledge and quietude. Dark oak shelves extended to the vaulted ceiling, guarding centuries of wisdom between golden leather covers. It was there, among the aroma of ancient parchment and the soft crackling of the fireplace, that hearts finally found courage to speak their truth. Friedrich was bent over ancient maps when Anna entered, carrying a tray with chamomile tea. Moonlight filtered through tall windows, creating silver arabesques on oriental carpets. She moved silently, but he felt her presence as if he felt the arrival of spring, inevitable and transformative. Anna, his voice cut through silence like velvet on marble, you transformed this place, from mausoleum to home. She stopped, hands trembling imperceptibly over the tray. For months they had danced around undeclared feelings, building intimacy through shared glances and comfortable silences. Friedrich rose, approaching with the gravity of someone about to alter the course of 2 lives. Margaret, he whispered, referring to his dead wife, died not from disease of the body, but from deep melancholy. She discovered her infertility and couldn't live with what she saw as failure. The confession emerged like water from a deep spring, releasing long-repressed pains. Anna understood without words what he couldn't say directly, that Margaret had chosen to leave, leaving him with guilt and a heart armored against new loves. And you, she whispered, finding courage in the library's soft shadows, taught me that beauty exists even in pain, that scars can be maps toward wisdom. When he held her hands, Anna felt decades of loneliness dissolving like morning mist. I want you to be my duchess, he declared, not in morganatic marriage, but as a full wife with all rights and honors. From the corridor came a muffled cry of joy. Wilhelm, who had heard everything hidden behind the heavy door, couldn't contain his emotion. Anna will be my new mama. And thus, 3 destinies intertwined definitively under the starry ceiling of a library that now guarded not only books, but promises of the future. 1848 painted the world with green hope and flowers that danced in the wind like whispered promises. The Schloss Ravendorf chapel, built in 1204 and witness to 8 centuries of history, prepared to receive a love that transcended social barriers and healed ancient wounds. Anna looked at herself in the sacristy mirror, barely recognizing the reflection that stared back. The French silk dress, embroidered with silver threads and tiny pearls, transformed her into an ethereal vision. The Brussels lace veil, inherited from Friedrich's mother, cascaded over her shoulders like a blessing woven by angels. 300 guests filled the chapel benches, an unprecedented mixture of Prussian nobility in embroidered uniforms and local peasants in their best Sunday clothes. Friedrich had insisted that all who wished to celebrate their love be welcome, breaking centuries-old protocols with the naturalness of someone who had discovered that true nobility doesn't inhabit titles, but hearts. When Anna walked down the central aisle, Supported by Wilhelm's arm as he performed the honors of escorting her to the altar, her gentle limp became a dance of dignity. Each step resonated like music against ancient stones, narrating the story of an orphan who had discovered herself not only heir to properties, but to a love that completed her. Friedrich waited before the Gothic altar, blue eyes moist reflecting years of loneliness, finally coming to an end. When their hands met, the world seemed to pause to witness a simple yet profound miracle. Two wounded souls healing through love. The vows included extraordinary promises. Anna committed to establishing a public hospital in the castle, transforming its halls into refuge for all who needed healing. Friedrich promised to officially formalize Wilhelm's adoption as legitimate heir, guaranteeing the boy would never again feel orphaned. During the celebration in the flowering gardens, while musicians played Viennese waltzes and guests danced under colored lanterns hung in centenarian oaks, Anna made an announcement that covered her new husband's eyes with tears of joy. She had been expecting a baby for 3 months. Wilhelm, radiant in his first blue velvet suit, spun among the adults, announcing to all who would listen, "I'm going to be a big brother." Spring had brought more than flowers. It had brought the promise of new life and a new era for Ravendorf Castle. Summer 1848 wrapped the castle in golden mantles and the constant murmur of renovation. Anna, radiant with her belly already rounded under light linen dresses, supervised the transformation of 3 ground-floor rooms into Ravendorf Hospital. Specialized workers from Berlin installed modern medical equipment while she guided the creation of ventilated infirmaries and isolation rooms for contagious cases. Wilhelm had become her constant shadow, fascinated by the idea of having a little brother. His small hands helped organize medicine bottles, and he had memorized every medicinal herb name as if they were poetry verses. Traumatic mutism was now only a painful memory. The boy chattered from dawn to dusk, recovering all those months of silence with an insatiable thirst for communication. Friedrich worked intensively on modernizing his rural properties, abolishing serfdom 2 years before Prussian law required it. Peasants who had previously been treated as property now received worthy wages and renovated housing. The change wasn't just political, but deeply personal. Anna had shown him that true power comes from the capacity to elevate others, not subjugate them. Afternoons were reserved for classes Anna taught to women of the region. In the castle's blue salon, transformed into a classroom, she taught basic preventive medicine techniques, newborn care, and medicinal plant cultivation. Seeing peasant faces illuminate with knowledge that could save their families was, for Anna, more rewarding than any nobility title. One afternoon, while teaching how to prepare burn ointments, Anna felt the baby's first movements, small, gentle kicks that seemed like shy greetings. Wilhelm, who sat at her feet organizing lavender seeds, raised wide eyes when she placed her hand on her belly. "He's saying hello," Anna whispered, guiding Wilhelm's small hand to feel the movement. "How do you know it's a boy?" Wilhelm asked with a child's natural curiosity. "Mother's intuition," Anna smiled, "but boy or girl will be much loved." That night, while Friedrich read administrative reports and Anna embroidered small baby clothes by perfumed candlelight, Wilhelm fell asleep on the carpet between them, surrounded by illustrated books and golden dreams. The family being formed didn't follow conventional patterns, but grew in love in a way no convention could contain. September brought winds that whispered changes not only climatic, but political. Echoes of revolutions shaking Europe reached Ravendorf Castle through letters and visitors carrying news of a world in transformation. Friedrich received daily correspondence from Berlin, where the Prussian court debated reforms that could forever alter the kingdom's social structure. Anna, now in her 8th month of pregnancy, moved with the gracious dignity of one carrying life within. Ravendorf Hospital had become reality, white and airy rooms where lavender aroma mixed with that of medicines, creating a healing environment that served up to 200 people monthly. Berlin doctors came to consult her folk medicine techniques, many of which proved more effective than traditional academic treatments. Wilhelm, now 8 years old and growing like a young sprout, had assumed the role of Anna's official assistant. He wore a small white apron embroidered with his name and carried a small suitcase with basic supplies. His transformation from mute, traumatized boy to confident young gentleman seemed almost magical to those who had known them at the beginning. One afternoon, while Anna treated a peasant woman with pneumonia in the main infirmary, a royal messenger arrived. The man, covered in road dust and breathing heavily, delivered Friedrich a decree that made his eyes narrow with worry. "Lord von Eckart questions the legitimacy of our marriage," Friedrich explained to Anna that night, while she rested in bed with pillows supporting her aching back. "He alleges that union between nobility and people of dubious origin might compromise regional stability." Anna felt a gentle contraction, not of physical pain but anxiety. "And what does that mean?" she asked, one hand instinctively protecting the belly where her child grew. "It means," Friedrich said, sitting carefully beside her and taking her hands in his, "we'll have to prove again that true love is stronger than entrenched prejudices." Wilhelm, who listened to everything from the corridor, a habit he'd maintained since recovering speech, ran into the room. "Papa Friedrich, no one's going to separate our family, right?" Friedrich picked him up, including him in the family embrace. "No, my son. Family is a fortress that resists any storm." That night, while wind howled through the castle's ancient towers, three hearts united in silent promise. They would face together whatever adversity destiny brought them. October painted leaves old gold and brought the trial that would determine not only Anna and Friedrich's legal fate, but the future of a new way of viewing nobility and love. Berlin's ducal tribunal, imposing marble building that echoed centuries of decisions that shaped destinies, prepared to hear a case that would divide opinions throughout Prussia. Lord von Eckart presented himself as a man of severe appearance, greyish moustache meticulously groomed, and uniforms gleaming with ancient decorations. His arguments echoed entrenched prejudices. Marriages between different classes threatened social order, endangered noble lineage purity, and could inspire others to break sacred traditions. Anna, radiant even in her 9th month of pregnancy, appeared at court wearing a dark blue silk dress that enhanced her natural dignity. She didn't speak much, but her simple presence, upright, serene, clearly educated and refined, answered every stereotype presented against her. Friedrich defended his choice with the eloquence of an educated man and the passion of a devoted husband. He presented documents proving Anna's noble lineage, witnesses attesting to her medical contributions to the region, and letters of gratitude from hundreds of people who had been healed in her hospital. The decisive moment came when Wilhelm was called to testify. The boy, dressed in his best green velvet suit, walked to the tribunal's center with firm steps. When asked about his life before and after Anna's arrival, his simple and honest response touched hearts that politics couldn't reach. "Before Anna," he said, with voice clear as crystal bell, "I didn't speak because it hurt so much inside. After she came, I learned that love doesn't hurt. It heals. I learned that family isn't just blood, it's who stays when everything gets difficult." The silence that followed was so profound, one could hear the nervous breathing of those present. Then a strong contraction bent Anna over herself. The baby had decided it was time to be born, and no human tribunal could prevent nature's force. Friedrich carried her in his arms out of the building, followed by Wilhelm and a crowd of onlookers that formed spontaneously. In Berlin's streets, while Anna was taken to the nearest hospital, common people applauded and shouted blessings for the People's Duchess, who had conquered hearts through compassion. The trial was suspended, but in the streets the verdict had been given. True love always wins. Heinrich von Ravendorf came into the world with clenched fists and powerful lungs, announcing his arrival as if he were a small general assuming command of his first army. It was November 2nd, 1848, and his first cry echoed through Berlin's Royal Hospital like celestial music to the ears of parents who had waited so long for that moment. Anna held her son in her arms, tears of joy mixing with birth sweat. Little Heinrich had his father's blue eyes and a tuft of dark hair that promised to be as rebellious as hers. Friedrich remained beside the bed, one gentle hand on Anna's head and another delicately touching his son's little face, as if fearing to break something so precious. Wilhelm, who had waited in the corridor with a child's impatient patience, finally received permission to meet his little brother. He entered the room walking on tiptoes, eyes wide with reverence before the miracle that was new life. "He's so tiny," Wilhelm whispered, admiring the minuscule hands that closed around his finger. "How am I going to teach him everything he needs to know?" "Slowly," Anna smiled, still weak but radiant, like someone taught me that love has no hurry. While the family savored the first moments of completeness, messengers ran through the city carrying news of the birth. The ducal tribunal, meeting in extraordinary session, received the information as a gift from heaven. Lord von Eckart, faced with tangible evidence of a family that had touched hearts throughout Prussia, discreetly withdrew his objections. The final decree, read by the Prince of Prussia himself, officially recognized Anna as Duchess von Ravendorf with all rights and privileges, Wilhelm as legitimate adopted heir, and Heinrich as lineage continuer. More important than legal recognition, however, was the personal letter the prince sent, praising the new form of nobility based on service to people instead of dominion over them. When they finally returned to Ravendorf Castle at the end of November, they found the gates decorated with winter flower garlands and hundreds of peasants waiting to bless little Heinrich. The baby slept peacefully in Anna's arms, oblivious to the celebration his arrival had provoked. That night, while the family gathered in the library that had witnessed their first love declaration, Friedrich held Anna against him. Wilhelm nestled between them and Heinrich, sleeping in the cradle beside the fireplace. "Complete," Friedrich whispered. "Finally complete." And in the castle's ancient walls, shadows danced as if silently applauding the miracle of a family that had been reborn through love. December 1848 snow-covered Ravendorf Castle like a mantle of purity, transforming towers and walls into an ethereal vision that seemed from a fairy tale. However, the true miracle wasn't in the exterior landscape, but in the interior transformation that had occurred throughout those extraordinary months. Anna walked through the hospital corridors, which now functioned around the clock. Heinrich slept peacefully in the improvised nursery in her office, while Wilhelm helped Frau Müller organize medicines. The vision of family working in harmony, each contributing according to their abilities, moved visitors who came from distant cities to know the famous Castle of Healing. The letter arrived on a particularly cold morning, brought by an official messenger from Berlin University. Friedrich read it first, eyes widening in growing surprise and pride. When Anna finished her morning consultation with a group of peasant women, he awaited her in the library, golden document in trembling hands. "Popular Dr. Anna Weber von Ravendorf," he read aloud, "Berlin University, recognizing your exceptional contributions to medicine and dedication to caring for the needy, grants you the honorary title of Doctor in Popular Medicine, with all inherent rights and privileges." Anna sat heavily in the leather armchair, unable to completely process what she had just heard. An orphan who had grown up being treated as a servant now received academic recognition from one of Europe's most prestigious universities. "More than that," Friedrich continued, voice choked with emotion, "they request you give lectures on popular medicine to medical students. They want to learn your techniques." Wilhelm, who had entered silently carrying Heinrich, ran to embrace Anna. "Mama's going to teach important doctors," he exclaimed, instinctively understanding the honor's magnitude. That afternoon, while the family gathered for tea in the main sitting room, Anna reflected on the extraordinary journey she had traveled. From rejected orphan to respected duchess, from amateur healer to recognized doctor, from lonely woman to beloved mother and wife. But the greatest recognition wasn't in the golden parchment now decorating the wall, nor in the titles she carried. It was in Heinrich's smile when he recognized her, in Wilhelm's tight embrace when he needed comfort, in Friedrich's gaze that said, without words, that she was the center of his world. "You know what I learned?" Anna said, watching snow fall beyond the windows. "True recognition doesn't come from institutions or titles. It comes from the heart of people whose lives we touch." Friedrich held her hand, intertwining fingers as they intertwined destinies. The future stretched before them like a book still unwritten, but whose pages were already filled with love. Spring 1849 arrived loaded with fulfilled promises and dreams that became tangible reality. Ravendorf Castle, which a year before had been merely a silent fortress, now pulsed with the life of a community that had found its purpose. Anna held Heinrich, now 5 months old and already displaying a smile that melted hearts, while watching Wilhelm run through the renovated gardens. The boy, at 8 years old, had become the bridge between two worlds, that of nobility and common people, treating with equal affection the children of dukes and peasants who played together in the castle courtyards. Ravendorf Hospital now served 300 people monthly, and Anna had established a training program for young women interested in medicine. Her Sisters of Mercy, as they came to be known, spread throughout Prussia, bringing knowledge and healing to the most remote places. Friedrich watched his wife work with the same admiration as the first day. The man who had been known as Iron Duke had discovered that true strength lay in the capacity to love without reservations. His properties became a model of social justice, and other nobles came to study his progressive reforms. On a golden May afternoon, while the family gathered in the rose garden Anna had planted, a letter arrived that would definitively crown their extraordinary journey. King Friedrich Wilhelm IV himself requested an audience, wishing to personally meet the family that had redefined the concept of nobility in Prussia. "Shall we go?" Friedrich asked, watching Anna gently rock Heinrich in the wicker cradle under the shade of a centenarian oak. Anna looked around, toward Wilhelm patiently teaching a puppy to fetch sticks, toward Heinrich smiling at butterflies dancing over his head, toward Friedrich, whose blue eyes reflected a serene happiness she had never imagined possible. "We'll go," she replied, "but we'll return home, because we discovered that home isn't where we're born, but where we choose to bloom." Wilhelm ran toward them, knees dirty with earth and face radiant. "Can I bring Schnell?" he asked, referring to the puppy he had adopted. "Of course," Anna laughed. "Family is who we carry in our hearts, regardless of distance." That night, after the children fell asleep, Anna and Friedrich walked along the castle walls. The full moon bathed the landscape in silver, and in the distance lights from peasant houses twinkled like terrestrial stars. "Do you regret it?" Friedrich asked, embracing her from behind while they looked toward the valley extending at their feet. Anna leaned back against him, feeling the solidity of his love like an unshakable foundation. "Being expelled in the storm? Finding you unconscious on the road? Believing that orphans can become duchesses?" She turned in his arms, eyes shining with tears of gratitude. "Never. Each pain was a seed. Each tear was rain." Years later, when Heinrich would become a doctor and Wilhelm would assume the lands with justice and compassion, when Ravendorf Hospital would become a reference throughout Europe, when Anna would write medical treatises that would save thousands of lives, when Friedrich would be remembered as the Duke who proved that nobility comes from character and not blood, years later, they would still remember that May night, when they discovered that some miracles don't happen suddenly, but grow slowly like roses that bloom in the right season. "And now we harvest a garden." They kissed under the stars that witnessed their first encounters, silently promising they would continue writing together the most beautiful story their hearts could imagine. True love doesn't just heal wounds, it transforms scars into maps that guide other lost souls back home.